Hello there everyone, and welcome to another edition of Lydia's Crafty Corner with me, Lydia, in my little crafty corner. So today I'm going to be sharing with you this card with some really bright and vibrant watercolour. To start with, I'm going to be using the Statement Flowers stamp set from Altenew. I also have a piece of watercolour cardstock which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. As I'm going to be embossing onto this, I have added some anti-static powder just to make sure that the powder doesn't stick where I don't want it. I'm then going to stamp my image using some embossing ink. When doing this, I do use a stamp platform. I find it's the best way to get a really great image when embossing images. And I always find that I do it twice. So I stamp it once with the embossing ink, and then I'll ink the image up again and then stamp it directly in place over the top of the one that I've just stamped. So once I have this nicely stamped, I'm then going to cover this over with some platinum embossing powder. Now this is a really beautiful colour, kind of not silver, kind of not gold, just somewhere in the middle. And I am going to heat set this until it's all nicely melted. Now I'm going to attach this to my little palette that I have here. To do this, I'm going to add some clean clear water to the front of my little panel that we have, and then some to the back as well. This is going to work in two ways. It's going to add a little bit of water tension between the palette and the piece of cardstock so it doesn't move, and it's also going to help stop warping when it dries. Once I've done that, I've then activated my colours in the 24 pan set from Altenew. This is the artist one, and I'm going to add some rainbow colours. So I'm going to start with this really beautiful pinky colour. Then I'm going to add a bright orange, a really bright yellow, then a green, which is more on the kind of lagoon side, then a really bright blue, and then lastly I'm going to add the purple to the bottom. I'm then going to kind of mix these around a little bit more, just using some clean, clear water. I then decided to try and take some of the colour away from the tips of the petals to give me more of an highlighted look. So all I'm doing is I'm cleaning my brush off, and then I'm going to take some of that paint away. So I'm drying my brush off so it's kind of thirsty, and then it's going to kind of pull some of that ink away from the images, so we're going to end up with kind of a highlighted look on there. So I'm going to do this for all of the little petals that you can see here, kind of cleaning my brush off each time and then pulling that colour away from the edges to give me more of a defined look to each of the petals rather than them just running into each other. Because we had that embossing powder down there, you can see that each of these petals kind of has a little bit more of a well, so they are going to stick, the colour's going to stick within those little borders that we have. I decided to add some of that purple colour to the top of the petal on the top flower as well, just to give me more of a variant look there. I then dried off my image, and all I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a darker shade of each of these little colours to the base of these petals. So to do this, what I'm doing is I'm mixing the colours that have mixed on each of the petals. So for this one here, I'm mixing some of that purple and that pink to add that darker shade in onto that petal. I'm going to keep doing that for the various petals that we have. So this one here that I'm just doing now has more of an orange and a yellow, so I'm going to mix those two together to give me a darker colour to add for the shadow. Now you can mix these colours on your palette, but as you can see, my palette on my paint set is particularly messy, so I'm just going to mix my colours onto an acrylic block, and this works perfectly as well. So I'm going to keep going with these petals, again mixing the colours that were on the petal itself to create more of a darker shade of that colour that we have there. I think this adds a really beautiful look to your images, and it's really easily done. As you can see, I'm not really paying a lot of attention to where the shadow should be. I'm just going to the base of the petals, and that's going to give me more than enough, I think. So once I've finished with all of these beautiful colours that you can see here, I'm then going to kind of mix them together a little bit more. I did find that when I popped these colours down, they were a little bit more vibrant than I thought they were going to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean off my brush, and I'm then going to take a wet paint brush again, and I'm just going to kind of soften the edges of that darker colour that we popped down there. It will still leave a darker kind of shadow at the base of the petal, but it's not going to be as much of a stark contrast as it was before. So once that's done, I did dry it off again, and then I'm going to move on to the leaves. Now, as I had already got green on my little rainbow flowers, I then decided to use my metallic watercolor set to add the colors into the leaves. We've already used a metallic embossing powder, so I thought metallic leaves would be brilliant with these really bright florals. Now I'm using a mix of the colors here. I'm using some of the light kind of bronzy color, and then adding some of that darker bronzy color to the base of the leaves, just to give me a little bit more definition and a little bit more interest to these images. I also decided to use this to add in for the flower center as well. So I'm just using the same colors that I used for the leaves for that flower center that we have there. Now this will, as it's opaque, it will go over any of the colors that have kind of transferred over to the leaves. So don't worry if you did add your rainbow to your leaves, this will cover over it perfectly. I then decided to add a little bit more dramatic touch to this. So I've taken my jet black watercolor brush marker from the Watercolor Wonders set, and I'm just going to color around the edge of this really vibrant floral, and it's really going to make it pop out of the cardstock. I just love how this looks. So once I have that, I then wanted to add a little bit more detail to the background. I thought it was a little bit too stark. So I'm just going to take my stamp, and this is going to act as a mask. I'm going to place it directly over the stamped image, and I'm then going to use some of the metallic watercolors to add a little bit of splatter to the background. Now the stamp is going to act as a mask, so anything that would have gone on the flowers is caught on the mask, on the stamp even, and I can just get rid of that. For the sentiment, I'm going to be using the Bold Thanks stamp set. Now I have both of them here. I have the shadow and the actual sentiment itself, and I'm just going to trim a little piece of double-sided adhesive, which is going to cover them images. And for the shadow one, I'm going to place that onto some vellum. And then for the actual sentiment itself, I'm going to be using some of the quartz glitter cardstock, which is very, very pretty and very, very sparkly. So I'm just going to place that on the back of both of those pieces and then trim around those. I can then add the sentiment die onto the top of each of the piece and then run that through my die cutting machine. For the one with the glitter paper, I did use my metal shim, as it's a little bit thicker and I really wanted to make sure that it was cut nice the first time. For the one with the vellum, I didn't need to use my metal shim. So once I have those both cut, I can then pop these together. So this is the one with the vellum, this is the shadow piece, this is the one that's going to go underneath, and then this is the actual sentiment itself. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little tweezers and I'm going to place the little pieces that we have here into place onto the shadow piece. I do find that these tweezers really do help with placement, just to make sure that everything's nice and square and in the right place before you do stick it down firmly. Now the double-sided adhesive that's on this has made them into technically little stickers, which are very, very sticky. So you do want to make sure that you've got these in the nice right place before you do stick them down permanently. It was at this point that I thought that there may be a little bit too much black on my card. So all I'm going to do is I am going to take 1/4 of an inch from each side of my little panel that we have here. But I'm also going to cut around the images. So the ones that are poking off the 1/4 of an inch are going to poke off. So I'm going to fussy cut around those just to add a little bit more interest to the card. Once that's done, I can then pop this panel up onto a card base. I have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 white card base, and I'm just going to pop that into place using some of the foam tape from Altenew. I can then remove the backing off the vellum piece that we have for the sentiment and then pop that into place. And here is the card complete. I really do hope that you like the card and that you've enjoyed the video as well. If you do make a card that was inspired by this, it'd be great if you do share, because we'd love to see. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and have a great day. See you soon. Bye-bye. Hello there, crafty friend. Lydia here. Just popping in to say that you can get your daily dose of crafting tips, techniques, and tutorials just like this by subscribing to the Altenew YouTube channel. All you need to do is click on that little bell up there and you will never miss a video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.